Today we are going to start the topic of ethics and morality. Ethics. It deals with the true meaning of such words as good, right, and ought, which are used so commonly in everyday conversation. It is a normative science of the human conduct. Ethics has been defined as a normative science of conduct, and conduct is a collective name for voluntary actions. The words ought and duty certainly apply only to right actions, but they suggest, if not imply, certain other things about these right actions. A. That they are obligatory on a particular individual. B. That there are tendencies in the mind of the doer making him disinclined to do them. And C. That one and only one action is right at a particular moment. The word ethics, although it is indirectly derived from a Greek word also meaning custom, has by long technical usage been limited to the normative science. The science which tells not what men actually do and actually think it right to do, but what men ought to do and what they ought to think it right to do. In the normative science of ethics, we study the standards by which we judge actions to be right and wrong, good and bad. From another point of view, we ask what is the real meaning of these terms, right and wrong, good and bad, and the rest. Once again, we are not asking what people think they mean when they use them. We are asking their true meaning or the only meaning in which they can be used correctly. The discovery and the establishment of ethical standards are the primary task of the normative science of ethics. Morality. At the present day, the word morals is used with a variety of meanings for the science of ethics itself, for actions regarded as good and right, and for the rules according to which such actions are done. It was originally derived from the Latin word mores, meaning customs, and so may be appropriately used for men's customary ways of judging human conduct, and that is what we are describing in this positive science. Difference between ethics and morality. Ethics and morality are fundamental concepts that shape human conduct. Ethics deals with true meanings of such words as good or bad, whereas morality provides a set of principles of conduct. Branches of ethics. 1. Metaethics. This branch of ethics is concerned with the study of the nature of ethics. It analyzes the meaning of words like good, bad, right, and wrong. Metaethics investigates where our moral and ethical principles come from and what is the meaning behind using them. 2. Normative ethics. This branch of ethics is concerned with the study of ethical action, typically based on what is morally right and wrong. Normative ethics is more practical as it applies to basic human behavior and actions. There are mainly three theories that come under normative ethics. Deontological ethics. This theory focuses on the morality of actions themselves rather than the outcomes of those actions. Teleological or consequentialist ethics. This theory focuses on the outcomes or consequences of actions. Virtue ethics. This theory focuses on the character of the moral agent. 3. Descriptive ethics. This branch of ethics is concerned with the study of people's beliefs about morality. It is also known as comparative ethics. 4. Applied ethics. This branch of ethics is concerned with the application of moral principles to specific issues and situations. It is divided into several sub-branches such as bioethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to medicine and healthcare. Cyberethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to the internet and technology. Environmental ethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to the environment and nature. Personal ethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to personal life and relationships. Professional ethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to professional life and work. Public ethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to public life and governance. International ethics. This sub-branch deals with ethical issues related to international relations and global governance. Ethics as a normative science. Ethics is the normative science of the conduct of human beings living in societies, a science which judges this conduct to be right or wrong, to be good or bad, or in some similar way. This definition says, first of all, that ethics is a science, and a science may be defined as a systematic and more or less complete body of knowledge about a particular set of related events or objects. There is a group of sciences, however, which do not deal directly with observed facts, but which deal as systematically and completely as it is possible with the standards or rules or norms or criteria by which we judge certain objects. And these sciences are called normative sciences. Aesthetics, for example, deals systematically with the standards by which we judge objects of perception, commonly sights and sounds, to be beautiful or ugly. Logic deals with the standards by which we judge statements to be true or false. Ethics deals with the standards by which we judge human actions to be right or wrong. Positive science. The sciences which are studied in the laboratories of our universities are descriptive or positive sciences. Positive sciences describe objects or phenomena as we observe them with our eyes and other sense organs, or in the case of mental processes like desiring and willing, as we observe them by introspection or looking inside our minds. There is in a positive science no question of judging its objects in any way. Examples of positive science: psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Difference between normative and positive science. The normative sciences differ from the positive sciences in one more way. They do not merely describe the standards by which we judge, they are also concerned with the validity or truth of these standards. In ethics, for example, it is not enough to describe the rules by which men have tested their conduct, such as the Ten Commandments of the Hebrews. We also ask in ethics why these rules are valid or on what grounds we ought to observe them. What do you understand by the human conduct? Conduct does not include those human activities like the circulation of the blood over which most normal people have no control, but it includes all voluntary actions. A voluntary action is an action that a man could have done differently if he had so chosen. Voluntary actions include all willed or volitional actions in which there is a conscious process of willing, like the action of a student matriculating in a university. Voluntary actions also include certain actions where there may be no conscious process of willing at all, provided that the doer could have prevented or changed the action by choosing to do so. A habitual action like a child sucking of his thumb, or even a reflex action like blinking in a strong light, may be voluntary, although the doer of these actions may not be thinking about them at all. Conduct may include inward activities like motives and desires, as well as outward activities like speech and movements of the doer's limbs, and so these also will fall within the sphere of ethics. We deal with human actions and not with the actions of the lower animals. What are the possible limitations on the human conduct? A more arbitrary limitation is that of confining ethics to the study of the conduct of human beings living in societies. Some moralists would indeed go further and hold that the standards of ethics only apply to the relations of men with one another. The conduct studies in ethics is not only conduct done in a society, but conduct that affects some other member or members of that society. It is worthwhile including a reference to society in our definition to remind ourselves that if it were not for his social background, a human being would not be a real human being capable of right and wrong actions. Aristotle expressed this by saying, "He who is unable to live in society, or who has no need because he is sufficient for himself, must be either a beast or a god." What are the different terms we use to judge a human conduct? There are several terms commonly used in judging human actions by ethical standards. We say that an action is good or bad, right or wrong, moral or immoral. We say that we ought to do an action, that we should do it, or that it is our duty to do it, and of another kind of action, we say that we ought not to do it, we should not do it, or it is our duty not to do it. Of these terms, good and bad are probably the most common, but they are also the most troublesome. In the first place, they are used ambiguously in common speech. Not only are good works done by the pious, but the troublemaker enjoys a good fight, and the successful burglar makes a good haul from the safe which he has robbed. What are the different uses of the word right? Let's have some examples. A person said the right thing in the interview. A judge has passed the right judgment. This is the right kind of hat to go with this dress. This word is just right in this line of the poem. It is right for a man to feel regret when his mother-in-law leaves his house. Now, moral philosophy. We may somewhat arbitrarily limit the word ethics to the science describing the standards, but the student of ethics will soon find that the description will develop into an investigation of the validity of the standards, and we may call this investigation moral philosophy, the name by which ethics was most commonly denoted until recently in the older British universities. There can be no sharp division between ethics and moral philosophy. What are the uses of ethics? Ethics is primarily a part of the quest for truth and the motive for studying. It is the desire for knowledge. In this respect, it is more akin to philosophical subjects than the natural sciences, where the practical applications are many and attractive. We naturally want to know the truth about things, and ethics aims at finding out the truth about something that is both interesting and important, the rightness or wrongness of human conduct. There is no guarantee that the man who understands by means of ethical study the difference between right and wrong will necessarily follow the right. There are four types of mental processes that determine human conduct. One is ideomotor tendency, two is desire, third unconscious mental tendencies, and fourth sense of duty. Let's discuss each of them one by one. Ideomotor tendency. There seem to be in our minds four types of mental processes determining our conduct, and two of these are more important than the others for ethics. A. There is a tendency in some ideas, perhaps in all ideas, to produce movements directly or automatically, and this is called the ideomotor tendency. The thought of the cold wind blowing in at the door of my study may make me rise automatically and move towards the door in order to shut it, without there being any conscious desire in my mind to do so. Indeed, the moment that I realize what I am doing, I may stop moving towards the door because I am now aware that I really desire fresh air more strongly than I desire greater warmth. Ideomotor action is merely a desired and intended action that has become more or less habitual and unconscious by means of repetition. Desires. We act most commonly because of our desires. We are hungry and desire food, and so we eat. We are curious and desire knowledge, and so we study. Desire is itself a developed mental process. Unconscious mental tendencies. We may act because of unconscious mental tendencies. These are sometimes regarded as unconscious desires or wishes, which lead to action very much in the way that conscious desires or wishes do. We may mean by any unconscious desire a desire which we have difficulty in observing in our minds or attending to, and in this case, the word desire is appropriate. But the desire is not altogether unconscious. Such desires differ from fully conscious desires in another way. They are generally less controlled by ourselves and less influenced by the conventions of society, so that the phrase unconscious desire suggests some primeval urge like that of sex. Whether such half conscious urges should be regarded as desires or as unconscious mental tendencies. There certainly appears to be an unconscious regulation of our behavior by factors in our mind. The movements of the sleepwalker are not determined by conscious desire, but they are, in all probability, determined by some cause within the mind. Insofar as actions are produced by unconscious mental tendencies, they are involuntary. It is the possibility of modifying them by conscious desire, even if it be the desire to be psychoanalyzed, that gives them any degree of voluntariness they have, and so brings them into the consideration of ethics. As in the case of the ideomotor tendency, it is the possibility of desire intervening that alone makes the actions possible, objects of moral judgments. Sense of duty. We may act from a sense of duty, and to do so is usually regarded as the outstanding form of moral action. Many psychologists hold that the sense of duty is simply one of our many desires, a complicated one certainly, but not for that reason of a different kind psychologically from the others. In this case, our analysis of desire generally will include this special form of desire. Others hold that here we have a new determining tendency which is often labeled conscience. A motive. A motive may be defined as a conscious mental process which moves a man to act in a particular way, and with the possible exception of actions done from a sense of duty. Actions done with a conscious process of willing have as their motives desires. It is my desire to eat food that moves me to go into a restaurant and order a meal. In desire itself, however, there appear to be two aspects. On the one hand, the instinctive craving or urge impelling a man to action, and on the other hand, the end or object at which he is aiming, which is said to induce him to the action. Desire and motive. Desire leads to motive, and motive leads to action. Intention. The consciousness of the consequences of an action varies from a vague awareness of some object, as when a child runs from some strange animal towards his mother, to a well thought out plan or policy where a man has a scheme of action covering a number of years and thinks of all the possible consequences of his plan, as when a man accepts an appointment for a number of years in a foreign country. This whole willed scheme of action, as anticipated by the doer of it, is called his intention. It includes as one part of it the aim or object which has been referred to as the inducement aspect of the motive, the direct object of the agent's desire, but the feeling or emotion impelling the agent to action is not regarded as part of the intention. Motive versus intention. A man's intention refers to the outside world, the world of anticipated results as they are foreseen by the agent. The motive refers to the state of the agent's own mind, the spirit in which the action is done, rather than the consequences of the action. Although a fully conscious motive has an aim which indicates the spirit of the action, the aim of getting money indicates an acquisitive spirit. In his intention, the agent must plan to do many things which he has no desire to do. There is a difference between immediate intention and remote intention. We may distinguish between them. Two young men may have the same immediate intention of enlisting in the army, but the one has the remote intention of earning large sum of money, while the other has the remote intention of sacrificing his career for the welfare of his country. Direct intention versus indirect intention. We may again distinguish between the direct intention of an act, which is the aim aspect of the motive, example, John's aim of making money, and the direct intention or undesired consequences which are anticipated, as for example the disadvantages to Jones of life in West Africa.